Hello, my name is Geoffrey, and in this tutorial I will be showing you how to implement RBAC in Laravel framework. RBAC is short form for Role-Based Access Control. So we are going to be building this application. Now this is how the application works. I can add new users here. For instance, I can add a user called John Doe, and the email is something like john@doe.com. And then I have the password and a password again, and then I can assign this user a permission or a role here. Let me see, this one is a storekeeper, and then I can submit, and you see the user has been added and there's a nice notification there. Now if I want to add a role, I just come to roles, and then I can create new roles. For instance, here you see we have 3 roles that we have already created, and we assigned John Doe a role of a storekeeper. Now when you come to roles, you realize that storekeeper has what permissions. So you can just click on show, and you'll be able to see that a storekeeper can only be able to see a product, the product list. So if we go back and we need to edit this list from this application, we can just assign new roles or new permissions to this role. So a storekeeper, for instance, we can edit. You see right now on his list is stored, product list. If I want them to be able to create new products, I just click on this list, this checkbox, and then this one if I want them to be able to edit and to delete. But for now, because I want to show you some kind of a demo here, let me leave it as product list only. And then here we have products. I am able to see all these buttons, show, edit, and delete, and I can also create new products here because I am logged in as the admin. Let me log out and let me log in as John Doe, who we created and gave the role of a storekeeper. So I can show you some difference. So log in, and John Doe is selected there, log in, and he is logged in, and you see immediately that up here we don't have roles. And here we have products, but John Doe is not able to create products, and he doesn't have the rights to edit or delete products. So let us dive in and let me show you how to do this application. So I have not written a blog post on this because I have found one beautiful blog post on IT solution stuff, and I will also leave the link to this blog post on the description below. So I will be following this blog post step by step in the implementation of this RBAC application here. So let's get started and build this application. The first step is you run this command to install a new Laravel application. I have already done that, and I am going to be changing directories here to my Laravel application. Let me pull this screen over, and I want to make this one slightly bigger so that you are able to see. Let me go to edit and preferences, and then I will need to change this to around 18. Yeah, and so I'll do cd to Laravel and permission. So if I do PHP artisan serve to start my server, you realize that when I come here and I refresh this application, I will see a completely new Laravel installation. So let us go ahead and start building this app. So let us go to our tutorial here. The first thing we're supposed to do is to run this command so that we can install the package in our application. So I copy this command, and then I stop the server and I run it. So this has been installed successfully, and the second step is we add this to our providers array. Where you find this file is shown here. So let us head to that directory. We need to go to config, and then you open app.php file, and you scroll down, and anywhere in this list you can add this. I like to add it at the bottom here. And then we follow to the tutorial. We have done that. The next thing is to publish these config files here. Let us go ahead and publish the config files. and they have been published successfully. Continuing the tutorial, here we need to do PHP artisan migrate. And of course, before we can do this, we need to have a database. So we can head over to our PHP my admin localhost. Here we are going to create a new database, and then we are going to call this Laravel permission. Let me use an underscore here instead. And then I'm going to copy this and create the table. And I have my Laravel permission created here. Then I will go to my directory, my files here, and then I'll go to .env, and here I'm going to use this as the database, and then I'm going to use my username and my password. Make sure you use the correct details for your environment settings. If you use mine, most likely they are not going to work. So when we have done that, we are now ready to run this command php artisan migrate, so that we can install our we can migrate our tables. And here my tables are migrating, and they have successfully migrated. If now I come to my PHP my admin here, I will find these three tables: migrations, password resets, and users. Let us continue with our tutorial. So here we see that we are supposed to create migration tables. These are very important, so I recommend that you pay close attention. The first thing we are going to do here is to publish this party permissions provider. So let us go ahead and publish it. Paste it here, and that one has been published. And then we create a migration for our product table. Let's go ahead and again paste this one here. You realize that there's a problem. The reason is because here they have used migrate, make migrate. It's not make migrate, it's make migration. So when you'll be following this tutorial, make sure that you have changed this from migrate to migration. And then when I run this, now I'm supposed to be able to create my migration successfully. And this one, when this one has been done, when you come to databases, migrations, you will find a new migration here. This is product migration. Let us continue the tutorial. Here we have users table. Now, this one has already been created by default by Laravel. So we may not need to do this. So I will skip the users table. And then I'll come to products table. This one we don't have. This one is the migration we just finished running. So I will copy everything in this like so. And I'll come here and I'll highlight everything and delete and paste whatever I have copied from the blog post here. And then I'll continue. After adding the products table, the next step is to add our Sparty tables. Now, if you published the provider app here with the tag migrations, then this one, the Sparty tables will already be added to the application. So to confirm that, if you come here, you will notice that we have a new migration here called migration tables. If I open it, I see that I have all those tables in here. So we can go ahead and skip this step, and then we are in now creating models. Here we have a user model, and as you can see in our application, we already have a user model in the app directory down here. However, there are a few things we need to do to this user model so that it can work. We need to add two things. The first one is this statement, so we use it there, and then we also need to add use API tokens. Use has roles. You need to use has roles. So let us add it there, and we are done with that. The next thing we need to do is we scroll down. Here we have product model, so we need to copy this code, and we don't have the product model. So what we need to do, let me just clear this. I can say PHP artisan make, and then I do model, and I call it product. Remember that we are supposed to name models with in singular, and then now it has been created successfully, and I have my model. So if I come here, I'll find my model. Opening it, highlight everything and paste the code you copied from our blog post. So let us continue. So the next step is to add the roles and the permissions middleware, which are going to protect our routes. So I will copy these two lines of code, and I'll head over to app http and kernel.php. So I'll go to app http and kernel, and I'll scroll down to route middleware, and then I'll paste this anywhere here. So that is done, and the next step is to create CEDA for our permissions. Now we don't need to do this, but I will do it because I want us to follow this tutorial. So let me create the CEDA. So copy that line of code, paste it here, and our CEDA has been created. When that is done, this is where you find your CEDA. You go to databases, and then you go to seeds, and you have your permission CEDA here. And then here we are given the code that should be in that CEDA. Now what this CEDA does is that it pre-populates our database with some of these permissions. So let me head over here, and then I'll highlight everything and delete, and I'll paste this new piece of code. After you have created the CEDA, the next step is to run the CEDA. Now when you do this, this is not going to work because we don't have these tables, this permissions table set up in our application. So let us go ahead and first of all migrate our tables. So here we do PHP artisan migrate, and our permissions tables are being created. And when you come to your application localhost, we had only 3 tables initially, and when this is done, you will notice that we will have more tables here. You can see all these tables have been created by our migration. And when you come to the permissions tables, here we don't have any permission, and now we can go ahead and run our CEDA. So let me copy this line of code, and then I'll paste it here and run it. And when that is done, this gives a success message. And when you come to your database here, you notice that we have all these permissions added for us from the CEDA. The next step here is to make an auth command. This is going to do the scaffolding for the login into the application. So let's go ahead and do that. Run it. There's a success message, and now when you come to the application, this has to be running so that you can see them here. Otherwise, if I refresh, this is going to it will not load because the server is not running. So let us move on. The next step here is we create our routes, and here we are using the resource routes. So these are enough. Copy, and then we take them to our application. We go down to routes and web, and then we can paste them here. Now in your real application, this is not going to look like this. You are going to need to enclose this, including this one, in a middleware that will protect these routes from users that are not logged in. But for the purpose of this tutorial, this is enough. If you want to see how to do that, you can check it in my other tutorial for the Laravel complete course. So let's go ahead and see our next step. The next thing is to add our controllers, and we have the first controller we need to add is the user controller. So let me copy this piece of code for the user controller. So copy that, and then come over to your application, and you need to add that controller. So let me close some of these files. Then controllers are in your app directory, and then http and controllers, and here. And as you can see, we don't have the user controller here, so we need to create that one. So php artisan, and then make and controller, then we have user controller. That one has been created, so we can come here and we find our user controller. We highlight everything, paste whatever we have. All right, so let's move on and see our next step is to create a product controller. So product controller, we are going to copy this piece of code, and we're copying the right piece of code. Copy this one, then head over here and create a product controller. So product, then we come to our application, product controller, delete this, paste, and then we move on. The next thing we need to add is our role controller. So we are going to copy this, copy that, copy, and we head over here, create another controller. This one is the role controller. So role, created. So we come here, we have our role controller, paste, and then we head over here. Now here we have a number of blade files. We have app blade PHP. This one is going to be found in views and layouts, and because I have done this before, I am going to copy all these from the other application. They are exactly like this, nothing is going to change. I just want to save some time. So in your case, you can just copy them from here, or you can clone my GitHub repository. You get all these files there. So I will head over to my other application. Here I have permissions, open it, and then I'm going to go to resources and views, and there is going to be products, roles, and users. So I'll copy these three folders, and then I'll head over to Laravel permission, Laravel permissions, and then I'll go to resources and views, and then I'll paste them here. When that is done, I can come back to my control to the blog post and continue. So all this we have pasted, so we can just go ahead and skip them. And the next thing that we need to do here is to add this exception handler. So I can copy this piece of code and then I'll head over to exceptions and handler. Now exceptions are found in your app directory, exceptions, and then we have a handler here. Scroll down to where we have the exception handler, and then paste that piece of code. This one will give us this message when a user tries to access a route where they don't have access to. And like that, we are done. And this application tells us to do PHP artisan serve. Okay. So there are a number of things that I want you to note that are not in this blog post. Number one, if we go ahead and do PHP artisan serve, this server is going to run, and our application here is going to wake up, hopefully. Yes, and we have login. And sure, of course, we cannot log in because we don't have any user. If you come to our database here, you see that, let me refresh this so that I can access the tables. Users, we don't have users here. So let me go ahead and create a user. I'll create myself and the password, again, password, and then I'll register. I have been registered, and I want you to take note of this part because there are some links that are going to come here. Now there are some things that I've not done here. That is why you don't see any links here. There are supposed to be links here. So if you go to my application, we have pasted resources here, and we have pasted in views, we have pasted users and roles and products. In layouts, we needed to change this app layout. So let's go back to our blog post and copy the app layout. So I'll go up to where app layout is. You can see these are so many files. So this is the app layout. So I will copy this one, this piece of code for the app, copy, and then I will replace everything in my app layout. When that is done, now come back to your application and refresh. And you notice that I have all these roles, these links here. I have manage users, I have manage roles, I have manage product. Now if I click on manage users, there is going to be a problem. It says class form not found. This one is not included in this blog post. So here you are going to need to let me close that. I think we are done with it. Here you need to pay attention to what I am doing here. I will also put a cheat sheet of this one in the description below. So the first step is you go to your terminal and add this piece of code, composer require and this. And then this one is installing those dependencies. So this has completed successfully. The next step is to add the aliases and the providers. So I'll also leave this code in the description section below. So I'll go to my aliases array. Remember this one is in config app, and I'll paste this line of code. And then I will also need to paste the aliases. So I will copy them and paste them here. And when that is done, we are supposed to be able to run this program again. So let me just make sure that my server is running. So if I refresh this, now I can be able to manage users. I can go to roles, but this one throws an exception. Remember, we added this line of code in the exceptions array. And then I can manage products. This one again has an exception. Now when you encounter this, it means that this user yet has not been given any roles. Now this is how I give them roles. Head over to your database. Here I have a user, and this user has an ID of 1. And then I have role has permissions here. This table is empty. It's not supposed to be empty. Now when I go to users, I have one user here. If I go to roles, I don't have even one role, but I have some permissions. So how do we create roles and we don't even have access to the roles URL here? So this is how I do it. Head over to your terminal and stop the server, and then type this php artisan make. Again, these commands I'm going to add them in the description section below. Not make, but this one is permission because this is coming from the permissions package. And then I'm going to say create, and then role. Note that this has to be as it is here. This one has to be this way. And then the role I want to add here is super admin. All right, this one has been created. Now when I have this role, I can add all the other roles from my dashboard, so I don't need to add the rest here. The next thing I need to do here is to make sure that I have reset my cache, but I will show you that when we come to that part. So let me first of all run the server, and now when I come here, I need to see that role. And yes, I have a super admin role here. So when I come to role has permissions, I need to map all the permissions to this role, because basically super admin has all the permissions to access anything within the application. So let me go to insert, and I have 1, and then I have 2, 1, and I can just make this ones 10. So I have 3. So I basically map all the permissions in this one row. And then that was 4. This is 5. And then I have 6, 1, and then I have 7, and I'm almost done. And then 8, and yes, and then I click on go. Now this table has all these values. Now after that, the next thing we need to do is to make sure that our user has this role. So that is supposed to happen in the model has roles table. Right now we don't have any value here, so I can go to insert, then I select this one, and then my model is model 1, ID is 1, and then here I need to add app, and then user is the model type, and then I click on go, and I have him. And that's all I need to do. Now if I come to this table and refresh, sorry, my server has to be running, so let me go ahead run the server. And here I have my user management, and I have my role management. So here now we can manage our users, we can manage our roles, we can manage our products. So let us add one more role here, because we only have super admin. So create a new role, and you notice that here immediately we have permissions, so we can be able to add permissions here. We have a role store, something like store manager. And a store manager cannot do roles that we only leave them to super admins. This one can list products, create products, edit products, and delete products. Add, and then we create one more role for a storekeeper. So storekeeper, and then this one can only list products and save. Now we can go ahead and add our users. We only have one user now, which is a super user. So create a user here. So store manager can be the name, and then this one is manager at email maybe.com, and then we have the password and the password again, and this one is the store manager, and we save. And then we have a another user. This one is the storekeeper, and then we have the email keeper@email.com, and then we have the password and the password again, and then this one is the storekeeper. Save. So we have all three users set up. Now I would like us to log in so that I can show you a few things here. The first thing we need to do before we log in, let us check the permissions that each user has here. To do that, you can go to manage roles, and then if you want to see what super admin can do, click on show, and here is a list of all the permissions. Of course, you can format this to look better. If you want to see the other, maybe store manager, you can click on show, and here notice they have these permissions, and then you can click on storekeeper and they have these permissions. Now you can have as many people as you want with different roles here. So let us log out and log in as store manager. Login, we have all these. So if I go to manage roles, there is an exception. Of course, you can again customize this to look better. This one does not have access to our roles route. But if I go to products here, the store manager can create products. I can create a new product here called bananas, and this is a banana, and I save, and there is the product. And now this guy can edit and can delete this product. Now let me log in as a storekeeper. So log out, log in as keeper. I think it was keeper, and I can log in here, and yes, that was this password. So here again, look, we have all these links here. If I click here again, this guy does not have that access. If I click on products, you realize that this guy cannot post products, and they can actually not edit or delete products. All right, but why do we have this URL here, which we don't need to have? Because these guys don't have this URL. So we can hide this. We can just go ahead and go to our permissions table, and maybe take a permission like role list, and now we go to and hide this, so that if you don't have that permission, you are not going to see this. So head over to your app. This is supposed to be in views and layouts and app, and here we have our links. So roles, here you can just say add can, and then you paste that. If a user can do that, then you don't forget to end can. If a user can role list, then show this, otherwise it's not going to be shown. If I save that and I just refresh this, you notice that that one disappeared. It's not there because the storekeeper cannot be able to manage roles. Now if I log out and I log in again as Geoffrey, who is the super admin, you notice that I will have all the links up here. So this can be done in views, and if you want to do it in controllers, you can just come to your controllers. Like for instance, let me go to this one and maybe products controller, and if you want to apply roles, you can do something like user. Of course, you will have an instance of a user, like user variable user equals auth, and then user, and then you can say something like if and variable user, and then can, and then you give your role here, like if user can role list, then do something here. So show some routes, do this, go to this route. If user can this, go to this route. If or else if user can this, go to this route, and you can be able to do anything with this. So thank you so much guys for watching, and I will see you in my next tutorial.